Hi everyone, this video is essentially for those who are preparing for NEET PG 2021 for a quick revision on collagen. Why this topic? For two reasons. One is collagen is a potential topic that is chosen by any examiner who wants to frame an MCQ on a case-based scenario. And because we know NEET PG 2021 is going to predominantly have case-based MCQs, I feel knowing the nuances of collagen synthesis is essential. The second reason is collagen synthesis involves multiple sites and multiple steps. So knowing all these sequences, the sites, the significance and clinical implications of defects of collagen synthesis all by yourself is going to be time consuming. And we know that optimal utilization of time is the key for success now. So I suggest that you watch this video till the end to know all concepts related to collagen. And feel free to pause the video whenever you feel like to memorize facts every now and then, in which case my assurance to you is that you will be able to answer any MCQ related to collagen synthesis by the end. Now to make this discussion interesting, I've given you a case-based MCQ, and the case says that it's a 2-year-old boy who is evaluated for EC bruising. His parents report that he develops open wounds following minor trauma. The skin is difficult to suture due to extreme fragility. Physical evaluation reveals hyperextensible skin and an umbilical hernia. A skin biopsy is performed and a histochemical evaluation of the biopsy reveals a defect in extracellular processing of collagen. Which of the following steps of collagen synthesis most likely impaired in this patient? So before you check the 4 choices of steps of collagen synthesis, I feel you have to first list out the essential or important clinical features in this case. There are 4 clinical features that are provided to you. The first one is EC bruising. The second one is EC fragility. Yeah, both following minor trauma and even during suturing they observe EC fragility. And the third one is hyperextensible skin. And fourth one is umbilical hernia. And the fifth point that is given to you as a key is it's a defect of extracellular processing of collagen. Now I want you to know that all these are clinical features of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a group of heterogeneous disorders which are related to collagen synthesis. They are related to defects of collagen synthesis or collagen assembly or collagen metabolism. So before we discuss steps of collagen synthesis or before we discuss the types of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I feel you will have to first recollect what we have learnt about structure of collagen. So collagen structure, every microfibril is made up of multiple tropocollagens which are arranged in a parallel array in a staggered pattern. Now look at this picture, you will be able to understand it better. This is called as a microfibril, and every microfibril is made up of multiple tropocollagens. This is one tropocollagen, and all these tropocollagens are arranged in a parallel array in a staggered pattern, in the sense there is a space between individual tropocollagens. And whenever there is a space, you know, there will be reduction in the tensile strength. So to avoid a reduction in the tensile strength, they are arranged in a parallel array in such a way that a tropocollagen in one row overlaps at least 3/4 of the tropocollagen of the next row. If you consider this tropocollagen, you see that it overlaps at least 3/4 of the tropocollagen in the next row. This adds more tensile strength. Now what is individual tropocollagen? Every tropocollagen is nothing but a triple helix made up of 3 polypeptide chains. Please understand, this is not alpha helix. Every tropocollagen is made up of 3 polypeptide chains arranged in a helical fashion, and individual polypeptide chains of tropocollagen is made up of repetitive units of glycine XY. So they are nothing but repetitive units of glycine XY. So if you are asked which is the predominant amino acid of collagen, your answer should be glycine. And what is X? X is mostly proline. What is Y? Y is hydroxyproline or hydroxylysine. And the significant feature of this hydroxylation is that this provides opportunity to form hydrogen bonding. So in a tropocollagen, if individual polypeptide chains are hydroxylated, then they form hydrogen bonding, and this hydrogen bonding helps in increasing the tensile strength of individual tropocollagen. And the additional glycosylation which happens on hydroxylysine residue also forms additional hydrogen bonds. Okay, because carbohydrates are hydroxyaldoses or ketoses, so they also form hydrogen bonding. So this tropocollagen is stabilized by hydrogen bonding formed between individual polypeptide chains. And if you look at every tropocollagen, in all these tropocollagens, some of the hydroxylysyl residues would have undergone oxidation by lysyl oxidase. And this lysyl oxidase converts the amino group of lysine to an aldehyde group. And this aldehyde group forms aldimine linkage with adjacent tropocollagen residues, and this cross linkages add additional tensile strength to collagen. So the tensile strength of individual tropocollagen is by hydrogen bonding, and the tensile strength of the whole microfibril is by cross linkages or aldimine linkages formed between tropocollagens. This is about general structure of collagen. Now about synthesis of collagen, if I ask you in which suborganelle collagen gets synthesized, your answer will be based on what kind of protein is this collagen. We know collagen is present in extracellular matrix, which means it's a secretory protein. Now generally all proteins get synthesized in a free ribosome. And what do these ribosomes do? We know all these ribosomes read mRNA. Let me show mRNA in blue color. So all these ribosomes read mRNAs from 5' N to 3' N. They read codons one by one. And depending upon the codon that is present, ribosome is capable of recruiting a complementary anticodon containing tRNA. And that tRNA drags along with it an amino acid. And this is how ribosome translates nucleotide sequences of mRNA into amino acid sequences of a polypeptide chain. And that is why we call this as a translation process. And when ribosome reads the mRNA from 5' N to 3' N, the polypeptide chain would grow from amino terminal N to carboxy terminal N. And that is why we call the amino acid in the amino terminal end as the first amino acid. This is how the entire protein synthesis generally gets over. But if the protein that is getting synthesized is one of the three types, namely lysosomal protein or membrane protein or secretory protein, because you want specific targeting sequences to target these proteins to respective organelles, and because those targeting sequences can be attached only by endoplasmic reticulum, rough endoplasmic reticulum is involved in the synthesis of three types of proteins. First one is lysosomal protein, second one is membrane protein, third one is secretory protein. This is a probable MCQ. Lysosomal protein, membrane protein, secretory proteins get synthesized in rough endoplasmic reticulum. Otherwise, all other proteins get synthesized in free ribosomes. But even in the case of these three types of proteins, protein synthesis is first initiated in a free ribosome. Even here the ribosome reads the mRNA from 5' N to 3' N, and the polypeptide chain grows from amino terminal end to carboxy terminal end. But the amino terminal end of these three types of proteins have a signal recognition peptide sequence. The amino acid sequence that is present in the amino terminal end of these three types of proteins alone would be called a signal recognition peptide sequence. And the function of the signal recognition peptide sequence is to guide the ribosome to get attached to endoplasmic reticulum, forming rough endoplasmic reticulum. You know that the same cell would have a nucleus, and this nucleus outer membrane would be attached to endoplasmic reticulum, and this endoplasmic reticulum for now is going to be called as a smooth endoplasmic reticulum because it does not have ribosomes yet. And during the synthesis of lysosomal, membrane and secretory protein, the signal recognition peptide sequence would guide the mRNA to get attached to endoplasmic reticulum, forming rough endoplasmic reticulum. And when the ribosome comes and gets attached to endoplasmic reticulum, it will not come alone. It would drag along with it the mRNA which it has been translating. So where is the mRNA now? The mRNA is now attached here, and the polypeptide chain now starts growing into the vesicles of endoplasmic reticulum. Now there is no need for the signal recognition peptide sequence. So long the function of signal recognition peptide sequence was to form rough endoplasmic reticulum. Once rough endoplasmic reticulum is formed, the signal recognition peptide sequence is not needed, so that gets removed. And this is how all pre-pro proteins get converted to pro proteins. For example, we say pre-pro-glucagon becomes pro-glucagon, pre-pro-insulin becomes pro-insulin. So how do you think this transition is made? All these are secretory proteins like collagen. So all these proteins first get synthesized as pre-pro proteins. Once rough endoplasmic reticulum is formed, the signal recognition peptide sequence is removed. That is how all pre-pro proteins become pro-proteins. Now in this case, pre-pro collagen has successfully become pro-collagen. Now this pro-collagen is growing into the vesicle of endoplasmic reticulum. As and when it grows into the vesicles of endoplasmic reticulum, some of the prolin residues in Y position and some of the lysyl residues in Y position undergo hydroxylation to form hydroxyprolin and hydroxylysin. And this hydroxylation is done by prolyl hydroxylase and lysyl hydroxylase. And both these hydroxylases need molecular oxygen. They need ferrous ion. Yeah, they need ferrous ion, and they also need vitamin C. And that is why what happens in vitamin C deficiency, the hydroxylation does not happen. Without hydroxylation, hydrogen bonding is not formed. So the tropocollagen is not strong enough, and that causes vascular fragility, and that causes bleeding gums and purple patches following trivial trauma. So this is about prolyl hydroxylation and lysyl hydroxylation. After this, some of the hydroxylysyl residues undergo glycosylation with just glucose residues or with glucose and galactose. And these carbohydrate residues also facilitate hydrogen bonding. And till this, they are called as procollagen. Now all these procollagen are present within the endoplasmic reticulum. I want you to imagine the whole screen as endoplasmic reticulum, and all these procollagens are released free within the vesicles of endoplasmic reticulum. Now 3 such procollagen polypeptide chains come close to each other. They have an amino terminal end and a carboxy terminal end. And carboxy terminal ends of these 3 polypeptide chains try to form disulfide bridges. And this disulfide bridge formation facilitates or initiates the process of helical conformation formation. So once they come close together, they all get integrated in a helical fashion. And this is how you get a procollagen. So if you are asked what is a procollagen? Procollagen is a fibril which has a central helical conformation, and this helical conformation is made up of 3 polypeptide chains, and this helical conformation is flanked on either side by non-helical N-terminal end and C-terminal end. So both the N-terminal ends and C-terminal ends are non-helical, whereas in the central side you have a helical conformation made up of 3 polypeptide chains. This is called as procollagen fibril. Now what happens to this procollagen fibril? So do you see that these pro-alpha peptide chains, because of disulfide bridge formation, the carboxy terminal end, they have come close to each other, and that has facilitated the helical conformation. And once this helical conformation is formed, you call it as procollagen. And this procollagen is released into from endoplasmic reticulum, it is released into Golgi complex. In Golgi complex, it gets packed within vesicles and it gets secreted out. So this is extracellular matrix. And once it reaches the extracellular matrix, an enzyme called as ADAMTS2. So what is ADAMTS2? It is a disintegrin and metalloproteinase with thrombospondin 2 motif. Yeah, ADAMTS2 is nothing but a disintegrin and a metalloproteinase with thrombospondin 2, which is nothing but a procollagen peptidase. And this procollagen peptidase removes the non-helical N-terminal and C-terminal ends, giving rise to tropocollagen. So this structure which does not have non-helical ends will be called as tropocollagen. Now this tropocollagen undergoes self-assembly. And how is this self-assembly done? As I said, they are arranged in a parallel array in a staggered pattern, and tropocollagen of one layer would overlap 3/4 of tropocollagen of the next layer. So such a self-assembly is done. And after self-assembly, this is how it looks. Now comes an essential enzyme called as lysyl oxidase. The next enzyme to act on the collagen fibril would be lysyl oxidase, and this lysyl oxidase oxidizes some of the hydroxylysyl residues here, and that removes the amino group, forming an aldehyde group. And this aldehyde group will form aldimine linkage formation with the next tropocollagen. This is called as cross linkage formation, and this cross linkage formation adds more tensile strength. And about lysyl oxidase, it's a copper dependent enzyme. It's a probable MCQ. They might ask you what are the copper dependent enzymes. The first answer should be the well-known ceruloplasmin, and then complex 4 of electron transport chain, which is cytochrome oxidase. You have superoxide dismutase, dopamine beta hydroxylase. This has been asked repeatedly. Dopamine beta hydroxylase, tyrosinase, yeah, and then lysyl oxidase. So these are the 6 copper dependent enzymes which you should remember. Anytime you're asked, you should be able to answer this. Ceruloplasmin, cytochrome oxidase, superoxide dismutase, dopamine beta hydroxylase, tyrosinase, and lysyl oxidase. So lysyl oxidase helps in cross-linkage formation between tropocollagen fibrils, and that helps in formation of one collagen microfibril, and multiple such collagen microfibril will finally form a collagen fiber. So I want you to know that extracellular processing involves just 2 steps. The first step is catalyzed by ADAMTS2 or procollagen peptidase, which removes the non-helical N-terminal and C-terminal ends, converting procollagen to tropocollagen. The second extracellular processing involves lysyl oxidase, which helps in aldimine cross-linkage formation between tropocollagen, forming a collagen microfibril. Then collagen microfibrils will assimilate together to form collagen microfiber. Okay, so that's all about steps involved in collagen synthesis. Now let's discuss about types of collagen before we discuss about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So there are 13 types of collagen, but for your understanding, I'm going to classify collagen into 3 categories. The first one is fibril forming collagen. The second one is network forming collagen. Third one is fibril associated collagen. So fibril forming collagen includes type 1, 2 and 3, and when you say 1 you can also include 5 because 1 and 5 are very similar. Now 1 and 5 are found in skin, blood vessel, tendon, bones and cornea. How do I remember this? I visualize myself looking at my hand. Yeah, there is skin first, and then there should be blood vessel, then there is tendon, then there is bone, and I'm looking at it through my cornea. Yeah, that's how I remember it. So skin, blood vessel, tendon, bone, cornea, all these have type 1 collagen or type 5 collagen. Now type 2 is found in cartilages, and one of the cartilages we know is intervertebral disc. And from V, I remember vitreous humor. So cartilage, intervertebral disc and vitreous humor have type 2 collagen. Now type 3 collagen is present in muscle, it's present in blood vessel, it is also present in skin. Muscle, blood vessel and skin have type 3 collagen, all these form fibrils. Now network forming collagen includes 4 and 8. 4 has been frequently asked, this is the one which is found in basement membrane. And type 8 is found in corneal and vascular endothelium. Yeah, 8 is found in corneal and vascular endothelium. Now fibril associated collagen, in the sense these are the collagens which come and lay close to fibrils. They come and lay close to 1, 2 and 3, and they help in cross linkage formation. So they are fibril associated collagen, and thus that would include 9 and 12. 9 and 12. 9 is present in cornea, 12 is present in tendons and many other tissues. Yeah, so these are the types of collagen which you need to know. Now about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, as I told you to begin with, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a group of heterogeneous in the sense they are clinically and genetically different. So it's a group of clinically and genetically heterogeneous group of disorders characterized by common features including hyperextensibility of the skin. You will see that the skin is sagging. Yeah, easy fragility of the skin, easy bruisability, hyperextensible joints, multiple hernias, with or without soft tissue involvement, with or without vessel involvement. When there is a soft tissue involvement or when there is vessel involvement, it's going to be very severe. Because if it's soft tissue involvement, it can present as bladder rupture, diaphragm rupture. If it's vessel involvement, it can present as aortic rupture. So that's about definition of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a group of clinically and genetically heterogeneous disorders characterized by hyperextensible skin, hyperextensible joints, easy bruisability, easy fragility, multiple hernias with or without soft tissue involvement, with or without vascular involvement. And all these are caused by defects of collagen synthesis or collagen assembly or collagen metabolism. For example, the classical Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is caused by a defect of type 5 collagen. We know type 5 collagen, any collagen for that matter, will have 3 polypeptide chains, and the 3 polypeptide chains of type 5 collagen are called as 5A1, A2 and A3. Any genetic defect of any of these 3 genes can result in classical Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And then there is something called as a severe vascular type of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's severe because, as I said, it can present with aortic rupture. Now we have dermatospraxia type of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and this dermatospraxia type of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is characterized by delayed closure of anterior fontanelle, short stature, short fingers, multiple hernias like umbilical hernias, and again hyperextensible skin, easy fragility, easy bruisability, hyperextensible joints. And it is caused by the defect of ADAMTS2, about which I have been repeatedly telling you. And I said it is related to conversion of procollagen to tropocollagen. It helps in the removal of the non-helical N-terminal and carboxy-terminal ends, helping in the formation of tropocollagen, which happens on the extracellular side. And that is the case history that is given to you. So all that I told you now would fit into this diagnosis. Yeah, umbilical hernia, easy bruisability, easy fragility, hyperextensible joints, that's not provided here. Most important point here is biopsy reveals a defect in extracellular processing of collagen. So even if you know nothing about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, if you just know the steps involved in collagen synthesis, all that you will have to check is, out of these steps, which step happens on the extracellular side. And what do you think about hydroxylation of hydroxy lysine residues? It happens within endoplasmic reticulum. Interchain C-terminal disulfide bond formation happens within endoplasmic reticulum. N-terminal propeptide removal done by ADAMTS2 happens on the extracellular side, because I have been repeatedly telling you, on the extracellular side, processing of collagen involves 2 steps. One is ADAMTS2 removing N-terminal and C-terminal non-helical portions, and the second one is lysyl oxidase forming aldimine linkages, favoring aldimine linkages. So this happens on the extracellular side, so that has to be the answer. But for completion's sake, let's discuss about choice D also. Prolin residue hydroxylation happens in the endoplasmic reticulum. So answer to this question would be choice C. This is why you have to know in detail precisely the steps involved in collagen synthesis. Yeah. So thank you.